the Council of Environmental Deans for the Council for Science and the Environment web series on online education and open education resources. My name is Slater. I'm the Associate Dean at the School of Arts and Sciences at Southern New Hampshire University in Manchester, and I'm a member of the Council of Environmental Deans and Directors Executive Committee. I started this fall with who present on institutional case studies at Southern New Hampshire University. And then went to one by Wayne McIntosh, who talked about the Open Education Resource University, followed by Solo, who gave us an institutional case study from UC Irvine. Saw webinars from Hunt Lambert, who is the Associate Provost at SU Online Plus, who did a case study, and Mary Lou Forward introduced to the Open Courseware Consortium. And also in November, we heard from Anat, who's the president of edX, and on edX and its partners. And last November was David Shovel, who gives a good overview of continuing education, outreach, and e-learning from University of Wisconsin. They had an interesting model there on a competency-based education. And then it's all three of them. First of all, I'll start off with Andrew Ng, who is a co-founder of Coursera, who's gotten a lot of immediately. He'll introduce us to what's going on at Arizona State University, the largest public university in the country. And Gary Mackin wrapped up our series this last fall with a brief how what Irvine's doing, and also in relationship to Coursera. So that was an interesting series. All of the webinars can be viewed at the NCC site, and here is the link, which has been out several times by Allison. So we're going to run one of our webinars. I just want to go through a few of the guidelines, if we could, to start off. Your headset muted, except for this. So if I do hear someone does not have their headset muted. So that'd be great. The questions in this webinar that you need to put them through the WebEx chat box and address everyone. They'll be submitted any time during the presentation, but they will be addressed by the presenter at the end of the presentation. And there's 2 minutes to manage. I'll step in and try to combine or facilitate that process. But this webinar is being recorded. I'm happy to introduce Mahesh Pradhan from the Education Training Unit, Division of Environmental Policy Implementation at the UN Environment Program. So all to you, and it's all yours.
Sure. Up my presentation. I'm loud enough. Is this okay?
A little bit of echo there. If you could maybe move your set a little, that may help.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. I'm very happy. Happy to be here today, and to all the way from Nairobi for a change, and also to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing here at the United Nations Environment Program, especially in terms of engaging with universities. I'd also like to quick word of thanks to the Council of Environmental Deans and Directors for this opportunity to chat and it's very impressive in terms of the numbers of universities that are members of this National Council for Science and Environment. My colleague Daiva at the Regional Office for North America in Washington put us in touch for this, and I'm grateful that we have this opportunity today. Before I get into my presentation, I wanted to also quickly introduce myself. I come from Nepal. I was based in the Bangkok Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific of UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, for over 16 years. And I'm now here in Nairobi heading the Environmental Education and Training Unit since January 2011. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just mentioning about UNEP, and year 2012 being a special year for UNEP in the sense that we had Rio Plus 20 Summit, also the 40th anniversary of UNEP's existence. Over the last 40 years, a lot of different development, but at the time, a lot of challenges. The Rio Plus 20 Summit upgrades and UNEP for universal membership, and in 2 weeks' time, we will have 190 ministers from all the countries in our governing council here in Nairobi. We have 6 regional offices all over the world, and the one here in North America, but we also have one in New York for UNEP as well. So all told, about 1,000 staff, a budget of about 500 million. A very small UN agency in comparison to the more established ones.
And you must be your mute button there.
The slides, okay. So 6 areas of priority for UNEP. First, in terms of climate change. Besides the mitigation side, we're also focusing quite a bit on the adaptation side, and particularly ecosystems-based adaptation. We have strong projects in different parts of the world on ecosystems-based adaptation, looking at different systems. Yeah. So one. Number 2 is on disasters and conflicts, and we have work in the post-conflict countries like Sudan, Afghanistan, Iraq, so on and so forth, but also on preventing conflicts and disasters, mitigating aspects. And the unit here is located in Geneva. Ecosystems management, and this is more the green side of things, and here from the economics, and we had this major report called the Economics of Ecosystems and Biodiversity, launched a year or 2 back, but also looking besides the economics at the freshwater and marine ecosystems, the terrestrial ecosystems, the RED Plus, so that whole range of activities. Yeah? And of course, this is linked to the CEDD, the Conference on Biodiversity. The area looks at governance, and here from national, regional, and global, how can environment voice be enhanced and coordinated in a better way. And back to Rio Plus 20, this was one of the 2 themes. Last 2 looking more at hazardous waste and chemicals as one, and then on resource efficiency. So both be more on the brown side of things. And just 3 weeks ago, we had a successful conclusion of the Mercury negotiations. So later this year in Japan, we will have the Minamata Convention on phasing of mercury. So efficiency and this whole side of sustainable consumption, production, our resource use, and we have a full division in Paris that's doing our work here. We will be adding one more thematic priority, which is on the state of environment under review from 2014 and 15. And linked to this is with the global environment outlook, and this is like the snapshot of the global environment. The most recent one we launched was during the Rio Plus 20 in June last year. And this was not too good. We have about 500 internationally agreed goals in terms of conventions, and you did a study of about 90 of these conventions, and surprisingly, significant progress was only in 4 of these conventions. Ozone, lead in gasoline, access to drinking water, fresh water, and then in terms of research on the main side. But the other areas, from climate change to habitats to food certification, waste, the progress has not been as good. I have also a good report on this. It's called Keeping Track. This was released, look at 20 years from the first Rio summit to 20 years later at Rio Plus 20. And this is, of course, the whole movement of environment over the past 40 years, how we've all come together. But I wanted to mention this specifically because there were 2 initiatives that were launched at Rio that relate directly to universities, and it might be of interest to you. This one was called the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, and we had commitments from about 270 universities, present mostly in terms of teaching, research, green campus, etc. And this was a partnership between UN agencies in terms of providing the platform. And of the voluntary commitments, I think that these comes of universities were majority, and was even acknowledged in the closing address by the Secretary General. The second one, which was launched after the Rio Summit, more recently by the Secretary General, is called the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Columbia University and the Earth Institute is taking the lead in this. Established a secretariat, but I think one of the key considerations is how to engage with universities, the academia, to identify solutions and also upscale and disseminate these solutions. So at the moment, I think I added 2 more thematic networks from food, health, all the way to education. So about 12 thematic networks. At the moment, it's also this UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development. It's been going on since 2005 to 14, and how we engage with the universities, schools, the whole range. So at the moment, we're planning for the end of decade conference, but also mention that we also had the first intergovernmental meeting on environmental education in Georgia, Tbilisi, in 1977. In fact, last year marked the 35th anniversary. In terms of higher education, and this is a little bit of analysis from our side in terms of how we engage with science that we have in terms of the policy linkages and with education. Here we have, I think, an estimate is about 16,000 universities globally, being in the Americas and Europe, but again, with Asia being another considerable, I guess, number of universities, we focused more on Africa because we're located here in Nairobi. And also in terms of how do we link these universities on the environment side. We have, I think, about 200 million students annually enrolled, and in terms of being environment across all the different faculties, across the disciplines, is something of a priority to us. Again, a lot of changes at the moment, and I noticed most of the earlier were on this online, from the UX, I guess the Coursera talk, etc. But in terms of the changing role of universities, and I was surprised to see this EPIC 2020. There's a website saying that the conventional university will be quite different by 2020, and it might even end in terms of the conventional role. In terms of mandates to focus on higher education, if we look at the Real Plus Outcome document, it's called Future We Want, and there are 7 paragraphs specifically highlighting the role of education, and within that, in terms of a whole campus approach, greening campus, international exchange, so on and so forth. We had a summary of this global environment outlook report, which out of 6 recommendations, there's one specifically on environmental education. There, as I mentioned, was the 35th anniversary. We had about 100 countries represented back in Tbilisi to see how environmental education could support the overall education for sustainable development movement, and of course our own Governing Council decisions. UNEP, we had a little bit of discussion within the senior management, and one of the decisions is we focus a bit more with universities and higher education. A lot of our work in terms of the reports that come up, the global environment outlooks, to recently something with FAO on food, all of these reports, and being more scientific and policy oriented, was how we could link up with universities to engage them first, and also disseminate these reports, but get their inputs in the process. So last June, and this is where we launched this Global Universities Partnership on Environment and Sustainability, World Environment Day, and also based a lot on our experience in Africa, where we've had something running for the past, I think, from 2004 onwards, 8-9 years, where we have 80 plus universities. GRUPES network, we are trying to focus around 3 pillars. First being on education. Here we're trying to see how environment can be mainstreamed across the curriculum. We are coming up with a small guidebook on this with Rhodes University in South Africa helping take the lead. The second component is also looking at some curriculum source books, and here we are looking at source books that concept a bit, provide case studies, and then also in terms of additional references. We have one on green economy with ecosystems management, 2 of these, with McGill from Canada helping with the drafts. We hope that these will be launched by June this year. We're working on one on climate change adaptation, and this is our colleagues at the University of Ghana taking the lead, and on RED Plus with a team from Yale University helping us. We have also put together a toolkit on low carbon campuses, greening of universities, and these our colleagues in Australia at the University of New South Wales have helped us put this together, again looking at case studies from different parts of the world. So education pillar there looks at training, And can we have universities help, especially with more of the developing countries, to focus training programs? So on an annual basis, we have 10 programs, bringing through about 500 decision makers from a week long to the longest one being 6 months long training course on environmental management. This is at Dresden University in Germany. Pillar, which is the basis for this Global Universities Partnership, is we're trying to bring regional networks, again, focusing more strongly on the developing regions, but also promoting North, South, South, and angular sort of partnerships in this. Regional delivery, and I just wanted to highlight especially the different regions that we're covering and some of the ongoing initiatives, partnerships that we have with the Global University Partnership. And here in Africa, especially we have the Association for African Universities out of Ghana with 200 plus universities. And with vice chancellors, we're also trying to see how sustainability and environment courses, programs, research projects, etc., can be more mainstreamed. The environment ministers met last September in Arusha, and they asked for a formulation of a regional environmental education action plan. We have active programs in South Africa, that's the ESA, which also celebrated 30 years, the Environmental Education Association for South Africa. And because Africa is being so, I think, varied in terms of the regions, the geography, in terms of language, we have 5 different sub-regional focal points. Here in Nairobi, we have with the former, I guess, Wangari Maathai, the Nobel laureate, her institute looking at peace and conflict on sustainability with the University of Nairobi. So in Africa, a lot of different programs, but again, engaging with universities to promote sustainability. In case of Asia and the Pacific, and again, another huge region, very direct, we have sub-regional approaches. So with the ASEAN, the 10 countries, and the Secretariat in Jakarta, we've come up with an environmental education action plan. Again, looking at formal, non-formal capacity building and information exchange. The ASEAN University Network running out of Bangkok. Recently, in the case of the South Asia region, they've established a SARC University in Delhi, where again we have the 7 countries coming together in different programs. Again, how we're trying to see how we can develop programs that cut across the SARC region and is of interest. Central Asia, we also have similar initiatives. We have something for Northeast Asia called the Tripartite Environmental Education Network, and how we're seeing this between China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. Also trying to see how we can engage Mongolia and North Korea also in the process. The Pacific, again, 20 plus countries and a very strong university in Fiji, the University of South Pacific, looking at climate change, so on and so forth. So that's Asia Pacific region. To North America, in terms of Latin America and the Caribbean, we had a launch last December of an ARIUSA network, which is of Colombia, and there the environment ministers have established something, the environment training network, and a separate budget, I think $2,000 a year for this training network. Our colleagues at the regional office in Panama are coordinating this. In the case of Europe, and besides Tbilisi and the active involvement there, we also have ongoing programs through the Environment for Europe. This is the Environment Ministers meeting, also linking up with the education ministers and then moving towards this education for sustainable development. In North America, we had strong partnerships in the past with, I think, Tufts University, Brown University, where we actually sponsored some programs, training courses. But more recently, we've signed an agreement with ASHI, the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, and also exploring linkages with the North American Association on Environmental Education. Again, I think we could do more, and I'm very happy to see, I guess, participants that have signed up for this conference in terms of seeing how we can engage better with universities in North America, not just with North American universities, but using North partnerships with universities across the globe. Last region is West Asia, and here with the United Arab Emirates, we had a big Eye on Earth Summit and the launch of 8 special initiatives, one of which is on environmental education. Within that, we're looking at online e-learning. I think we'll be very much interested to see how we link up with partners as you. My last slide is looking at some of the key partnerships, just to mention. UNESCO, of course, within the UN system, they're taking the lead on education, whereas UNEP on environment, since environmental education cuts across the two, so we complement each other. We will have a steering committee for this decade and the end of decade conference, which will take place in Nagoya in 2014, and many of our UN partners, our sister agencies. We've established an institute in Shanghai, in China, in Tongji University. It's called UNEP Tongji Institute of Environment for Sustainable Development, and that celebrated 10 years last year, and we're looking at a lot of North-South cooperation through this platform. I already talked about. We're looking also at partnerships with the International Association of Universities, based in France, and then a Commission on Education and Communication of the World Conservation Union, IUCN. So besides these, we also have 2 key events. First is the World Student Summit on Sustainability. So we've been helping them with a conference last year in November here in Nairobi. That one will be in Shanghai in June. The International Students Summit on Environment and Sustainability. And later this year in June is the big event where we will have many of our group as partners and a group as side event during the World Environmental Education Congress in Morocco. So we will have the group here in 2 weeks' time to discuss modalities for this. I thought I'd flag this in case some of you might be interested. So let me end there. I think in terms of what I have to say with overall into priority areas, the 6 priority or 7 thematic priorities, from climate change towards efficiency. Then in terms of, I guess, the changes with global environment outlook and the need for education to play a stronger role in meeting our targets. And then in terms of group as the 3 pillars that we have, training and research. And then in terms of the partnerships and the regional delivery of this global university partnership. So maybe end there, and I look forward to seeing your comments and questions. I'm not going to come across. John?
If everyone could just submit questions through the chat box if you have anything, and Mahesh, you have your chat box up and you can address those questions as they come in. We thank you certainly for your time and effort on this one, and hopefully we can generate some conversation.
Okay, if I talk a little bit more on this graduate curriculum source books, there's still work in progress, but the content of these graduate curriculum source books is basically, firstly, in terms of the concept, we, for example, were focusing on green economy, and economy were topic during the Rio Plus 20. There was a lot of skepticism from many developing countries as another sort of barrier to their development. But at the same time, many countries embraced the concept in bringing the economics and the full fiscal side of decisions closer to the environment and sustainability side. So we tried to look at the concepts, and here UNEP released an 800-page report on this green economy, looking at, I think, 10 different sectors, from transport, buildings, agriculture, tourism, so on and so forth. So we tried to look at it in terms of how this could be integrated if we were to develop a course. So the core concepts, and many countries, for example, South Africa, is doing a huge project on energy efficiency in terms of solar and renewables. So try to put together some of these case studies that students could find and use. And the third section in terms of references, glossaries, so on and so forth. So it's not too sort of voluminous, but we wanted something practical for universities that they could then disseminate. So as I mentioned, we have the green economy one, we have one on ecosystems management also, but the more recent ones are on the RED Plus, and this is reducing emissions from forestation. Again, I think that is coming along well with the Yale group, and more on climate change adaptation. Again, we try to fit this within the 6-7 thematic priorities and to see how we can promote that at the time in terms of universities engaged in the process. So I guess the first part on the source books, I've seen a couple of other questions come in. Okay, in terms of some of the specific trainings, and I'd like to give this example of we in Sweden, where we have this, we call the ITPs, the International Training Programs. We're running new ones on coastal zone management, but the early ones was on education for sustainable development. The model that there we over 5 phases. So we had first sort of an orientation and got everyone to Stockholm for weeks, and this focusing more on Africa and Asia. And they went back to countries, and then in terms of starting so-called change projects. So they had a little bit of support to implement these change projects. And then we had regional meetings in Africa where all the participants from Africa got together and for Asia. And it was very useful in the sense that over the 5-phase period, in terms of a training that starts with an orientation, they do something concrete, they together have peer review, and then in terms of sustaining it. So remember, one of the projects, I think it was in Botswana, was they had no environment courses. So through this, they were now able to start master's courses and even undergraduate, courses on environment. So these are the approaches. Of course, there are different approaches. We have another one on youth encounter on sustainability. Again, this is a very hands-on approach. So maybe that was one quick example, I thought. Moving on there. MOOCs, yeah. On MOOCs, and again, with the whole Coursera and all, we're starting to get into this process. We haven't seen in terms of much happening within UNEP on this, but we're very keen. We have the UN Institute, UNITAR, and they have a lot of e-learning programs, but these are more conventional. But I think we would be very keen to explore with partner universities, especially Coursera partners, to see if we can work together on one of these moves. I think I just read somewhere that now, even in terms of giving credits, 5 or 6 of the Coursera courses now are eligible for that. So we would be very keen to explore from UNEP, and given the content that we have, from the 6, 7 thematic priorities, a lot of it on the policy side, and find it's a real pity that many of our reports are not used in the education side. And feel perhaps through MOOCs we could then and disseminate this. Okay, any question? Yes, I think this whole GUPES initiative is to promote this partnership. Just last week, we had a group from McGill, no, sorry, not McGill. I'm sorry, McGill, come here. We had Columbia University. The president was also here in Africa, launching their Africa Center. So a lot of universities are exploring partnerships here in Africa. But also, for example, in China, we have this partnership there. So we're very keen to promote these linkages between universities so that there could be exchange of students, exchange of faculty, perhaps focusing around the sustainability education. As I mentioned, we have this big meeting coming up in Morocco. I think the group of members participating, so we'd be very keen to see many universities from North America also join. Group at the moment we have about 130 plus universities, but again, majority of them being from Africa. Again, they're very keen to link up with universities in North America, Europe, the Pacific, and this is the whole idea of the platform of GUPES. So we'd be very keen to welcome anyone who's interested to linkages with universities in other countries. Universities in North America, and I think if I mentioned, we have this regional office in North America sitting in Washington. They have a focal point there in terms of engaging with education and universities. So as a first step, maybe if we can, I guess, contact office in North America. If you look at the UNEP website, you'll have the contacts there for this. But because we've been focusing more on the developing regions, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, we haven't had much more engagement with North America. But now we want to create that engagement. So in terms of, I guess, universities in North America, we get them to engage, and the first step would be to contact the regional office in Washington. A few examples of how these partnerships function, and revert back to Africa, where I think the universities have been meeting, trying to see how they can come up with joint programs, and programs being exchange of faculty, exchange of students, and also developing programs jointly. Because we have the university, Rhodes University in South Africa, which is one of the pioneers, and they have been helping other universities, especially in South Africa, in terms of developing environmental courses, resources, so on and so forth. And also in terms of research. I think last year, the National Science Foundation in the U.S., I think, and all the U.S. aid, a big call for proposals, and that many universities in the U.S. were keen to partner with universities here in Africa on joint research, joint courses, so on and so forth. So we tried to facilitate some of these partnerships through the Group S platform as well. If I talk about Asia Pacific, and there we have 8 universities that are helping the Stongji University. And one of the concrete projects that they put together is a leadership program. A week to 10 days, bringing young policymakers, and the universities collaborated in putting the points together and also serving as resource persons for this training program or leadership program. Okay, got last question. Is that okay, John? Or?
Great, Mahesh, thank you. Any questions for Mahesh?
If not, maybe I'd like to also hear in terms of awareness of UNEP within the universities. Is this something that is there, you feel? Is this something that could be improved? Because we're trying to reach out, but again, because our primary sort of clients are governments, so we deal directly more with the policy side of things. Because our future leaders are in universities in terms of investing in universities and programs there, we are trying to look at that. But I think we'd be very interested to see and hear from you, if not now, but through emails, etc., to see if there's a way we could engage and promote more visibility within the university system.
Can you share any of their experiences, which is talking about?
Amy's comment, yeah, I think this is an excellent idea, and I'm very happy that our Washington office put us in touch with the CEDD. We would be very keen to explore, take this partnership forward. Summer conference that you mentioned, yeah, perhaps that could be one. But to our Washington office, sometimes this distance and the carbon footprint is too high in terms of being there. But through sort of these online conferences, WebEx, etc., we could explore. But also in terms of the MOOCs, I would be very interested, and I think CDG is a leader. If I look at all the past conferences on this, has been on this topic, so we can explore with this on developing a joint MOOC on sustainability and see how that goes. I am aware within Coursera there are several courses on sustainability, but has not had any input to the process. But perhaps this could be, I guess, one of the first follow-ups whereby we explore with the council in terms of universities that could partner with UNEP in developing one of these courses.
Mahesh. Thank you quite a bit for all your time and effort in this presentation. Yes, would be okay if people emails personally, Mahesh?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Can you provide?
I just saw something from Steve, and I can reply to that maybe by email.
Okay. Sure.
So thank you very much, John, and also Alison in the background for making this happen. We're very happy that we have the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about what we are doing and how we can engage with universities. Within the UN system, UNEP is quite small, but in terms of focus more on the policy side. But I hope that through the Focus platform, we can engage more with universities and joint programs.
Okay.
So many thanks again.
Okay, well, thank you, Mahesh, for your time, and thanks everyone for participating this week. This is their sign out.